It certainly wasn't the intent of WWE, but well, who knows? Maybe there's some nefariousness going on. But did Drew McIntyre turn babyface on Saturday, and did CM Punk turn heel? At least in the eyes of perhaps a sizable and perhaps increasing part of the WWE audience, given what went down, Greg?
I don't think it was an official turn, but I think more and more people can look at what's happened with Drew McIntyre and what's happened with CM Punk and read Drew McIntyre as the babyface of the situation
Yeah.
and Punk as the heel. I've gotten this question quite a bit on Wrestling Night in America the past several weeks, and I think we might have even talked about it at one point
Hmm.
on the flagship. And I was always very resistant to the idea that Drew McIntyre, with his comments, with his interviews, was actually turning into more and more the babyface because so much of what he said was correct, and it was just the way he was saying it that made him a heel. And I was pushing back against that. After Clash at the Castle, I'm way more accepting of the idea that hey, maybe Drew McIntyre is more of a babyface and Punk is more of a heel, based simply on what happened at Clash at the Castle. I thought Clash at the Castle was an opportunity to have Drew McIntyre win the title. McIntyre now goes into a match with CM Punk for the championship. That feud takes on added importance now with the title on the line, and boom, you can go from there. I feel like we've reached the law of diminishing returns with CM Punk costing Drew McIntyre. And so I didn't think this really added much to the story, except that maybe on Raw it propelled McIntyre to quit, which, by the way, I think isn't a reasonable thing to do when you've been screwed twice in your homeland, two Clash at the Castles now that Drew McIntyre has lost in his quest to win the world title. This time, because Punk had somehow deputized himself as a replacement referee and kicked Drew McIntyre below the belt, which is a heel move to cost him the
Absolutely.
match. I'm totally on Drew McIntyre's side here. Like I've been awakened by this.
You know, the look that CM Punk had in his face when Drew McIntyre sat up and he holds up two fingers, only a 2 count, and Drew's just glaring at him. I mean, if you're Drew McIntyre, you're thinking, what is the company that I work for going to do about this? Because,
Exactly.
like, obviously, Punk should not be allowed to do that. Although, in in a way, it also just shouldn't matter to a degree. It's the low kick was very heelish. Punk teasing Drew with a 2 count isn't actually teasing him with a 2 count, or isn't teasing him with anything because the pin in theory would not have counted. Punk isn't an official referee.
Yeah.
So, like, Drew could have just looked at him and said, "Okay, so you're not a referee. Where's the real referee? Let's keep going." So to me, the storyline doesn't make a lot of sense if you put thought into it. It just was sort of like a OMG, we should do this. Fans will be shocked, and some were, and then they were amused. But it doesn't add up to Punk actually getting any kind of revenge other than what you said, which is a low kick. And it also, for people who were sort of on edge about Punk's uh, the perceived brittleness of his body, is he really going to be able to compete consistently? And even more so, all the drama in AEW, all the drama that just seems to follow him or that he attracts through his actions and inflames through his response to people. If you design a storyline, could you have designed a storyline that played more into that, Greg? Like, oh, Drew said some mean things about me. I can't let them go. I can't wait till I'm healthy and have an official match. So I'm going to stalk him, but also keep
Yeah.
my distance in a luxury suite. When he comes to get me, I'm going to run to the ring so he can't get to me. But then I'm going to sneak into the ring, screw him over in his home country, laugh in his face, kick him in the crotch, cost him a championship, steal from the fans the chance to see if Drew or Priest are better, and then run away. I mean, like, it it doesn't reflect well on Punk unless you're just absolutely loyal to CM Punk. And I think WWE's counting on that people just are going to delight in seeing Punk sort of mentally and physically torture Drew McIntyre because Drew says mean things.
Right, and that's where I don't think the revenge that Punk has taken matches up with what McIntyre did to him. You know, McIntyre making fun of the injuring. I think he's taking credit for injuring Punk and putting him on the shelf. And Punk costing McIntyre the match at WrestleMania via Money in the Bank. Okay, I get that. They're even. But yet
Yeah.
Punk has come back more and more to keep costing. I think this is now the third time that Punk has cost McIntyre a match. And I mentioned, it being a law of diminishing returns to some point, but it's also way above and beyond, it feels like,
Yeah.
what
Out of,
revenge should have been taken by Punk on McIntyre to make them even. So, Punk is hitting McIntyre 3 times harder than McIntyre hit him. And at some point, you start to feel bad for McIntyre, even though he, keeps coming out and saying, as you said, saying mean things about Punk. But does that really warrant Punk continually costing him? And I think it makes it difficult for fans to stay on Punk's side in this.
so I thought last night on Raw, the chants for Punk were there, but I didn't think they were overwhelming. They weren't sustained. I don't want to read too much into one one crowd on one night in one city, but it wouldn't surprise me. And I mean, it could go either way. So I'm not like, I don't have certitude of this, but it wouldn't surprise me if some fans are going, okay, Punk, like lighten up, just get healthy and have a match. Like,
Yeah.
and grow thicker skin. You've said lots of mean things about people over the years. That's the sport we're in. Drew has been witty. He hasn't gotten overly personal. I thought it was, like clever. Oh, I prayed you'd get injured. My prayers were answered. Whatever thing that was. Like, okay. I mean, I don't know. I just think WWE has to be careful if they want Punk to be a babyface. I think he's pretty Teflon with a big group of fans, including some who are watching us and are angry with us right now. But I'm not, rooting either way. I just want to enjoy a wrestling show where it seems like everybody knows what they're doing, they execute it well, and there's a good story arc and a good conclusion. The problem is there was a story being told at Clash at the Castle, which is, can Drew McIntyre win his title in his hometown? Is he good enough to beat Damian Priest? Is Damian Priest really world championship level? Can he hang with Drew? Or is, winning Money in the Bank a little bit of a fluke, and then the way he won the title, an even bigger fluke? This is his chance to legitimize his title reign. That's why a lot of people watched. And then we got what? Nothing. We nothing was proven because Punk couldn't just wait till he got an official match. So, I mean, I don't want to blow it out of proportion, but I think WWE should be cognizant of the possibility they're booking Punk poorly and also playing into his reputation, which I think will add a little extra tendency of fans to have a shorter leash when it comes to him acting out like this.
And I'll also say that if WWE's booking is intent on actually doing a double turn here, then hey, maybe this is the way to go. But I really
Yeah,
don't
and I don't
think
think they
that's
are.
the intent. I mean, no,
Right.
I think this is WWE trying to keep Punk as a babyface and McIntyre as a heel. And part of the problem, as I mentioned earlier, is McIntyre. There's just enough truth in what McIntyre is saying, and you can relate just enough to McIntyre to for these instances for fans to kind of come over to his side, right?
Like,
Sure, he's not doing it in the right way. He's not going about it the right way. There are things that he's saying that are meaner than they should be, but there's just enough of a kernel of truth in there that when you see what Punk is doing, it makes it easier for you to go over to McIntyre's side on this.
totally. WWE's Drew McIntyre quit last night because he's upset with the company. He said, "Oh, I heard what you said at the media Q&A, Paul Levesque, and I'm done with this company. This is too much and not enough action." Obviously, wanted some action to be taken. That wasn't. So he quits. WWE is taunting Drew on their Twitter X page. They're showing Drew, like, we got it on the screen, the snide smile of haha, 2 count. I couldn't hit the mat a third time, and Drew's sitting up. The company is like, they could put a lot of things on the top of their Twitter page. That's what they're putting up. They're taunting the guy who, storyline wise, just quit their company because he's being treated unfairly and screwed out of championship matches, and they're essentially taunting him. So I actually, and you mentioned this, it seems like Drew might be, like, storyline wise, fans would be sympathetic with him quitting this company. They're not actually treating him well. There's probably, well, go ahead, yeah.
Adam Pearce could have come out at the beginning of Raw and said, based on what happened in the match on Saturday, we're giving Drew McIntyre a rematch against Damian
Yep.
Priest. Maybe you do it on an episode of Raw before Money in the Bank, so you're not having that match as the title match for 2 PLEs in a row. But instead, what happened? Seth Rollins came out, and he's going to be facing Damian Priest. They're
Yep.
completely skipping over Drew McIntyre, not even allowing him to fight for the opportunity to get a rematch. And if you're Drew McIntyre in storyline watching this backstage, how frustrated are you that you're now being skipped over despite how you lost at Clash at the Castle? And Seth Rollins is walking in after being off TV. Drew McIntyre likes to say he carried the company during the most difficult time during that COVID era.
Yep.
And now here's Seth Rollins coming back after months off, and he's inserted right back into the title picture that Drew thinks he deserves. Now, did Drew McIntyre quit WWE, or quit Raw? Because CM Punk is going to be making a return on SmackDown Friday in Chicago. Does Drew McIntyre make an appearance? Is he going to be part of the SmackDown brand going forward? Who knows? But something to consider.
Something to consider. I think he said, "I quit this company." I think.
Okay.
So if he said that, I don't think Raw is a company.
No.
One of the things that they want Drew to be the heel and Punk to be the face is to have Drew overreact to all this somehow. React in a way where it's like, well, that's gone too far. But the problem is now you're outside the realm of pro wrestling. What, he steals his dog from the backyard, poisons his dog. I mean, like, we don't want to go to play. Costing someone a championship match with a kick to the nuts is pretty much within the canon of pro wrestling, the lowest form of action you can do. So I don't really know what Drew can do to top what Punk has done to him. So short answer, should CM Punk be better off as a heel and Drew as a babyface? Would that be better for WWE? Or is Drew too good as a heel and Punk too popular? Let's not be hasty. There might be a time for that, but not yet.
Yeah, not yet. I think the story being told, at least, from the going back to the very beginning of it, was Punk overcoming this injury, coming back and getting his revenge on Drew McIntyre in a match. And if WWE had kind of stayed that course, I think it would have been really compelling, and maybe even have Drew McIntyre win the title. So that now Punk is not only coming back for revenge, he's coming to take Drew McIntyre's title. There's a little bit of added bonus to it. But we've kind of veered off that course a little bit with Punk going above and beyond, in my opinion. Maybe some fans don't believe it. Maybe some fans are still firmly on the side of CM Punk here, but they've just gone so heavy-handed in Punk costing McIntyre time after time that it's, I think, getting more and more difficult for some fans to stay on the side of CM Punk as a babyface here.
All right, so we'll wrap up our 12-minute hot take there. We are going to continue, Greg, our conversation on a wide array of topics, including Uncle Howdy, the Bray Wyatt 2.0 gang massacre on Raw last night. We'll talk AEW, more on a lot of Seth Rollins' return, the decision to give him a title shot that you mentioned, all kinds of stuff going on in pro wrestling this week. We're going to record our weekly flagship, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast, after we conclude here. If our YouTube channel viewers watching this are not subscribed to the Wade Keller Podcast, it's free. Just search Wade Keller on your podcast app. There will be a red logo and a blue logo. The red logo will give you our post shows. The audio version of our post shows here on YouTube after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. The Blue Logo Show features our weekly flagship where we just do a wide array of topics of current events in the news. And also that feed includes some classic long-form interviews and other special features. So please do subscribe. You can also check out Greg Park's columns in the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. And you can enjoy his VIP show Out Loud with Greg Parks, where he reads his column out loud and adds an introduction to it. That comes with a VIP membership. Full details at pwtorch.com/govip. We'd love to have you as a VIP member. Greg Parks, thank you so much. We'll talk to you in 1 minute when we set up for the podcast recording.
Looking forward to it.